Orthodox theology is absolutely wonderful. I couldn't suggest it more. Outside of that, it's confusing, and it's demoralizing and kind of depressing. At the heart of everything is nothingness, and this nothingness is just eating away at society until everything disintegrates. It's all meaningless anyways, and it's like that's just not the case. You cannot live your life that as it's meaningless. You just can't. Right. Meaning is inherent to the structure of reality, in a sense. No matter how much you want to look away from it or deconstruct it, it will come back in monstrous ways, in a sense. And this whole idea that there is no big other, there is no transcendent, that's just not true, right? The transcendent is hidden, is veiled from us, right? And Girard really gets into this idea of Dionysus, right? And of all the previous gods, people say that, this idea of a dying God and a resurrecting God is older than Christianity, and Christianity is just appropriating that information. But that's not the case. In the history of the world has been the history of building civilization off of human sacrifice. And a lot of times, Girard talks about the scapegoating mechanism and this mimetic desire. That human being desire as such is mimetic. We copy the model, right? The first model being our parents, and then friends, and then, heroes and stories, or role models, or even fashion models, right? So we desire things not because of their intrinsic value, but because we think others desire them, whether that's a girl or an idea or whatever it may be. And this desiring ramps up to conflict and ultimately violence. And when this mimetic desire process reaches a certain level, there's this process where the conflict and violence is ameliorated through scapegoating a victim. And that victim is scapegoated. All of the sins of the community is discharged on the scapegoat, and it brings a semblance of peace back to that community. So it's an illusion that has a real effect of bringing peace, temporary peace, to a community. And a lot of times that victim, right, that victim that was blamed for all the problems becomes deified, and that becomes a deity because of this. The sacrifice of the victim had this ostensible reunifying effect. They think that this being is some special being, and they turn it into a god, right? That is the veiled transcendent process. All of these processes are unconscious, right? But it's this victim that's put up in this transcendent realm that reorganizes society. And Girard says, Satan is both the creator of order and disorder in this world. Right. So that process in itself, the single victim mechanism, this accusatory way of discharging the sin for temporary relief, is what Satan is. Right. It's like, right. Wow, it's quite wonderful. I don't know what ultimately my point was there, but and then the Christian story, short-circuited that process and disclosed the transcendent spiritual realm as such in terms of the Trinity. So there is a transcendent, but we're looking for it in fallen materialistic forms where it does not exist. There is no big other. There is no transcendent. No matter how much you look, no matter how many times you break particles apart and keep getting them smaller, subatomic, and the string theory, whatever's at the very, you're asking the wrong questions. You'll never find what you're looking for using these set of questions, these sets of tools. We need new sets of tools and new questions to ask. Turns out these new questions are old questions, and they're coming back to us to ask them again, I think.
Right. And from my understanding of Girard, conflict is really, you wouldn't really have conflict, or maybe I'm wrong here, but let's just say we had a being, God, who could give infinitely, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we have this, I think everyone has experienced jealousy of other people's success, right? And you're looking at them, and really, you should just think, is their success harming me in any way? Usually it's not. Usually it's just pure pride and jealousy. Mm-hmm. So I would say that this problem of mimetic desire and the conflict between people, we have a very real solution to that, and that is the God with bounteous wealth to give people. And you realize as an Orthodox Christian that other people's blessings by God, they are part of renewing the world as a whole and creation as a whole. So it'll ultimately be a benefit to you. And also you mentioned how in ancient civilization there would be the sacrifice that would end up being deified in a way, right? And I think that Christianity, we have problems with that, but at the same time, how would you relate this to the, well, one, Christ, and two, the martyrs, who are in a way gods? You know, the saints are gods. um the goal of the Christian world is to become a god. So like, how would you relate this to the idea of the martyr who sacrifices himself for God, and in so doing becomes a son of God, or a god, however you want to term it?
Yeah, I think there's an important distinction to be made, right? When a martyr, let's say my namesake, patron Saint Demetrius, right? He is not worshipped as himself being a god, right?
Mhm.
We don't worship him. Like, I have an icon of him, but I don't worship him in a sense, right? He points towards Christ, right? And Girard says that the Christ showed that the victim is innocent, right? He showed that the victim is innocent. So he short circuited this process, and there's a lot more there that we could kind of go under or go into, but he showed that the victim was innocent in a sense. And this idea of God, the infinite mystery, disclosed himself to the world through the death, the sacrifice, and the resurrection of his son. It's through the resurrection that the conversion of Christianity happens. And that's what happened to the apostles in a sense. You know, it's a beautiful mystery, and something to talk and to discuss.